So a scientist discovers a plot to clone other scientists so the government can control the weather.
Welcome to Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl.
I mean, who wants to have sex with a guy named Bob?
Oh, Bob. Just doesn't sound right. Oh, Bob.
Bob. Oh, Bob.
Oh, Bob.
Oh, Bob.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am too smart. I am too smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
Josh Adams.
That's Jaime, protege of mine. Ranked number 32 in the federal prison system.
32?
That's right.
Out of what, 20?
Visit us at IHateCritics.net, Everyone's a Critic Podcast.com. We're on Facebook. We have the group there as well. Twitter and Instagram handle is CriticsPod. There you can participate in our movie fights, top fives, read Sean's reviews. The 30-year-old movies will be there, and all around interaction. Patreon, IHateCritics.net/Patreon is the best way to help support the podcast. There's also PayPal if you go to IHateCritics.net. And then we have the merch store as well on the site if you click on the podcast merch tab. All three are great ways to help support the podcast. There's obviously merch. There's you get a credit on the show if you're on Patreon. PayPal helps us out as much as Patreon does as well. And then Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all your podcatchers help out as well. So if you subscribe, rate, and review the show, we'll read the review on the air. Am I forgetting anything?
Probably not.
Okay.
But I also wasn't listening.
Good. It has been a weird start. They've been here for like 40 minutes. My recorder broke, so we're using my on-site interview recorder. So if it sounds different, that's why. I apologize. I'm also not doing the sound bites live, which I thought I was going to start doing again. So anything that's different, this will be a one-time thing. I've already bought the new recorder while we were waiting. So
That's cool. Usually I'm punch drunk around 40 minutes into the show, so now I just start out with it.
yeah, so I'm out of it. So you guys,
you're already at peak Josh. So just be ready.
Sorry.
But let's get to news. We'll start with Predator news.
Yeah, okay. So the Predator, most people didn't see it. So if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it, would like to, maybe you shut it off for the next 2 minutes or so, okay? But they shot an alternate ending that didn't even make it onto the Blu-ray, because that's out in stores now and you can get that. They didn't want to even include it as a deleted scene because it could provide a problem for people all of a sudden that purchase it and say, hey, wait a minute. But a concept artist and guy that worked on the film posted some of his concept shots, and they actually filmed an alternate ending, multiple ones. One of them involved that pod at the end. Now, you two have seen it. Obviously, you saw it. I can't remember if you did. You want me to shut up?
No, you're good.
Okay.
I don't even know what you're talking about, so we're fine.
At the very end, they're showing that there's a good predator who's been helping the humans out against this massive predator that's there to take out all the rebellious predators. And they provide the humans with what is ostensibly an Iron Man suit, but like a Predator suit to help them defend the planet against other potential Predator visitors. All right, get that crap out of your head, whatever. One of the alternate endings that they filmed, though, was the pod that they opened to get this thing out. There was a breathing apparatus that looks like a face hugger from the Alien series. Another alternate ending, there was a person under that face hugger oxygen mask, and it was Ripley on the name tag. Now, I know, because I've already gone past all of my insanity and thinking about it and wondering how they would make that work. But as the concept artist put it, a time-traveling Ripley. So they were going to introduce time travel and the Alien franchise in one moment. Now, that is a terrible idea. But if they were going to do it, that would have shocked the shit out of me in the theater. I mean, I would have been leaving the theater jaw dropping, sending you guys filthy messages one after the other.
You say introduce, but this wouldn't be the first time the Alien and Predator franchises.
No, you're right about that. What I meant was introducing time travel to the whole franchise, which I don't know about that. Yet another.
I'm suppressing that memory. Damn it!
Yet another alternate ending involved Newt from Aliens having been grown up, and they shot footage for that too. They're showing the picture of the actress that they shot footage for Newt. It's like, what are you even doing? But in theory, it would work. If they're trying to say the Alien 3 and Resurrection didn't exist, and that's how they make Neil Blomkamp's thing or whatever, how do you make one of those? You have to advance time along, and then all of a sudden you say Predator and Alien thing, it comes together. And then all you have to do is forget like 2 movies. It was kind of ingenious, but also the most ridiculous thing. Now, for a guy like me that just any alien news is good news for me because I'm worried about what Disney's going to do with it. I got excited after like a day or so. I had to sit with that shitty news for a day, and then it settled in, and I'm like, all right, well, maybe. Thank you for letting me share. I'm done.
Would have been better if it was Adrian Brody.
Yes, that would have worked too. Where was he anyways?
I know, right? He was still on the Predator planet.
Yeah. But if he had been the one in the suit,
that would have been perfect.
Totally would have made sense. They already respected him. All right. Now we can talk about real things that matter, probably. Not for me, but like you guys.
All right. Happy Death Day to You.
Yeah,
Trailer.
the second trailer for Happy Death Day to You, and I'm a little disappointed. I'm worried they're going to muddle this concept because I really like this movie a lot, the original Happy Death Day. She's a great actress, and she's really the center point of this, which gives me faith because she's so good. I think she made the first film work, and hopefully that'll be the case with this second movie, is that she's good enough to make it better than it looks, because right now it really looks like they're going to muddle that concept. It was such a good concept the first time around. Essentially, for those who don't know, she is murdered and then she wakes up and the day starts again. So it's kind of like a Groundhog Day situation where she keeps waking up in the same day each time after she's murdered, and she has to essentially solve her own murder to live. And now it looks like they're going to kind of muddle that concept, and I really hope they don't screw it up.
Have you seen Happy Death Day yet?
No, but the ebullient words that you gave for it at the time made me think, probably, maybe, someday, And I've seen the trailer a number of times at the theater, and they've shown it in front of the weirdest films, like Aquaman. They showed it. I don't know what that has anything to do with it, but okay. At least on my end.
PG-13 horror movie. Yeah, I get it.
Sure, but they do some things in the trailer that are just not appropriate to me. But we've had that conversation before.
PG-13.
All right, fine. But at the same time, anything that's smart in the horror genre, I think I would be more interested instead of just writing it off.
I'm not sure it's smart enough, I guess. It's original enough and fun. Fun's a key word, I think, to that movie. And if this one can manage to be fun without taking you out of it, because they could really screw up the premise with the sequel. So we'll see how they...
The first trailer was really good. Like it tapped right back into the humor that was so strong in the first film, and this one is shorter and it has less to it, but it definitely makes it feel more plain and like other horror movies, and that was really unfortunate.
I kind of like that it's going back to the same day instead of not again kind of thing. And then Teen Spirit trailer.
Yes, with one of the Fannings, Elle Fanning, and singing a bunch of pop songs. Apparently she's going on a reality TV show of some sort. Not a big fan of this. I don't know what's wrong with this trailer, but something doesn't quite fit right with this, because I have no idea what granted, you kind of want a trailer to be a little bit vague so you can be surprised, but this is vague to a degree where I just have no idea what's going on. Other than she's singing pop songs and she might be on a reality show, but she's also a dancer. So it's not American Idol. I have no idea. I really don't know what to think of this. She sings okay, and she's going to sing songs that are very familiar. But beyond that, I'm not sure what's going on with this trailer.
Was that her singing the song in the
Yeah,
trailer?
that's the big thing in the trailer is that she's singing all these other people's songs.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say they could have gone with a much better version of that song, but if it was her singing it, that makes sense. I don't know if there's another angle to this to find or not. I'm hoping that there is. Like, if they only showed you enough to get interested in maybe what's going on, and then later we see a trailer that's like Neon Demon or something. Okay, I'm down for that. And we know that Elle Fanning has done some challenging
Neon
stuff.
Demon.
Yes, please.
Producers of La La Land.
Make that movie.
You're never going to be able to watch an Elle Fanning movie without thinking of Neon Demon, are you?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the fact that it's the producers of La La Land and Elle Fanning, that alone, I'm giving it a little bit of a shot, but the trailer didn't do anything for me, and then all the pop stars involved, I don't care for any of them, so that didn't help either. So yeah, I'm not, and I don't really even like the name. I think that's stupid, too, but I don't know.
It was misleading. I thought it would be something else having opened it, but yeah, I guess I shouldn't have thought that.
Anything else before we move on to our organized movie? Our organized podcast? Just so everybody knows, we're recording this blindfolded. The video doesn't work either, so you're not catching that, but we are participating in the whole Bird Box thing, which we'll get to later, but we'll start with the Escape Room.
Escape Room, yes. This is the only new wide release of the week, and it's directed by a guy named Adam Robitel, who actually directed the first movie that came out last year, Insidious: The Last Key. And what I liked about that movie was that as much I like the Insidious franchise, but I also like the way he's able to build moments. He built great moments in that Insidious film with lots of great suspense and really great staging. He was really, really talented guy, and so I was really happy to see his name in front of this movie because I was not excited about this film. But then I'm sitting there watching it, and it really unfolds in quite a unique and interesting way. It's basically PG-13 Saw, get that? But the premise, of course, is if you know what an escape room is, it's this kind of a thing that kids do where they go to this place and they've got an hour to find all the clues to get them let out of the room, and you can maybe win prizes doing it. So here the prize is that you get to live, you get to survive, not be killed. They've selected these people on purpose, and they're going to reveal themselves throughout. Like I said, it's kind of the similar premise to Saw 2 in many ways. But this one, the best thing about this is that it really goes against the trend that we've had for most of this young century in horror of having people in these movies who are just terrible people that you don't mind seeing die. And that's a horrible trend that I've always hated. And here, what they do is they give us 6 characters who are really likable, who are, they've got flaws, they're not perfect, but they're nice people. When they get into this situation, they immediately turn to being caring about each other as opposed to trying to, I'm going to shove you in front of the bullet to save myself. Now, that's going to develop. One of them, at least, is going to develop that way, but it's a natural development, and I really like that. Each of the spaces have these intricate clues that you're kind of taking part in a way, so you get to feel what they're feeling, and the tension really builds well. I liked the way he built each room. But especially, I really liked these characters, and I really wanted to see them survive this, and I just liked who they were as people. And it has 2 endings, which is unfortunate, especially the second ending is really not necessary. I know they're building up for a sequel on this, and especially they had a very successful opening weekend, so they'll probably get that sequel. But the second ending of this movie was really a bummer, because the first ending kind of set up a unique premise for the second film that I thought would be very cool for them to explore, but then they ruined it with the second ending. So it's good, not great, but I really enjoyed these characters.
Yeah, and if you want to go back and listen to that episode where we talk about Insidious: The Last Key, I hated that movie. And I like the Insidious franchise as well. I thought they dropped the ball on that one big time. And I've always been a fan of people, of unlikable characters dying. I've never really cared about that. So
It's just when every movie has all characters that you just like are just obnoxious and you wish they were dead. I'm so sick of that as a premise.
Well, yeah, and you have to see more than I do.
Yeah, and Insidious, for its part, it bucked that trend too with having good characters, and this one is like in that vein.
Well, in a movie like this, is more set up to have characters you don't like. Like the Saw movies are essentially the guys you're hoping are survive. They're not good people that
Right.
are trying to.
Well, it's the great thing about these characters, and if these characters were in a Saw movie, they'd be in one room, they'd all survive, and they learn the valuable lesson and go home because they'd all work together. As opposed
Kind of
to
where I thought you were going with this. To be completely honest with you. So that's all the new movies. But we watched a lot of Netflix this week.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, so much so we didn't do a classic. So we will start with the biggest movie of the year, probably until Avengers or Captain Marvel come out. Bird Box.
Yeah, Bird Box. This is very interesting. This is Susanna Bier, who's a very unique director. Her last film was that Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence failure, the one that didn't even make it to theaters. So she's very hit and miss. This is a movie about, it's like The Happening, essentially, but it's The Happening kind of a little bit smarter, maybe?
Like, well, I don't know. It's like The Happening meets A Quiet Place.
Yeah, kind of. Instead, this time you can't look. You have to keep your eyes closed. But it may just be the wind that's trying to kill you. Who knows? We don't know, because I did see the concept art of what these monsters are supposed to look like, and I'm glad they never showed them because it's really terrible. But the premise is, again, Sandra Bullock is a woman who's pregnant. She's about to have a baby, and then suddenly the world starts to end because there is some type of force that is getting in people's heads and causing them to kill themselves. And so she is able to escape into this house in the suburbs where they're a diverse group of people, of course, that's in any movie. And they try and survive together for a little while and figure out what's going on. They figure out eventually, just kind of through the script, that, that they need to cover their eyes when they go out. Which I like the use of GPS. I thought that was a clever bit where they covered up the entire car and used just GPS to get by.
I guess, but it still doesn't quite work like that.
I like the way they did that. But other than that, it's not a great movie. What's great about this movie are the memes that go with the movie. I was watching this movie as I was scrolling Twitter with the hashtag BirdBox, and I was just laughing uncontrollably because the people who love this movie really love this movie, and they're very funny about how they love this movie.
Are they making fun of the movie, or do they love the movie?
I think it's a genuine admiration for the most part. They just also, they genuinely admire it, but they're also kind of mocking it in a way.
Yeah, I think I'm getting the admiring, mocking thing for sure. I'm also getting the genuine admiration, not mocking feeling from a lot. And I think those are the individuals that don't see a lot of films, or they haven't seen any apocalypse films or any good films. Or, I mean, I could keep going down, but you understand what I'm saying, right? This, I'm going to have to be easygoing on this one. I hate this movie with a strong, fiery passion. There's one point where you give the film a little leeway for not showing a purpose or whatever. We've gone over this ad nauseum on the show. There's no reason to resurface my feelings about needing to know something. Sometimes I'm okay with it. Like a movie we'll talk about later or in a recap fashion. That one's something, okay? This one, yes, I've seen concept art too. They both suck. Like the actual and proposed version of these monsters sucks. In watching this, I discovered I have a relatively newer TV. The one that I had that was my nice TV was broken. I waited 8 months to find one. Got one that I like. It's supposed to be 4K, right? And I've heard about, through Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie, this idea of motion smoothing. And I found a way to disable it after I watched Bird Box, and I did go back to 5 separate scenes in the film so that I could at least compare to my previous opinion, which I relayed to you guys, which is this movie looks like shit. Who did the cinematography? Fire them, never work again. Because it looked cheap. And I'm starting to see this when I watch Netflix films, not all of them, but original films through these streaming services that just have an odd sheen to them sometimes. And all I can think of is who's shooting this movie. Is it the cinematographer? Is it the director? Who makes the choice to look at this and say it's okay? Because it isn't to me, especially in a scenario where this is well liked and well talked about. I'm like, does no one else see what I see? I think motion smoothing has something to do with it. So I'll give the film at least the credit that I was wrong the first time around. It was the first movie I encountered this with. As for the film itself, you've got cliches everywhere for every apocalypse film, every suspense film. How people arrive at the conclusions they do, how people don't arrive, cookie cutter characters, and of course you've got to have John Malkovich as the grumpy guy that upsets everyone, and of course you have to have the ambiguous guy be played by Tom Hollander, because he can be British, he can be English, he can be a hellion, who knows. I found no consistency with this movie, only in that everything was cheaply done. All of the payoffs are cheaply done. I've seen this before in that you can't look at something or you'll be instantly affected by it. And maybe that's not A Quiet Place's fault, or maybe that's not Bird Box's intention, because as I understand, this came from literature before and was adapted. But my experience was that of, please get off of my television. I don't understand what the hype is. Like, nothing this mediocre should be talked about that much. And I could only arrive at, it's just the people that haven't seen a lot of movies. So they're surprised for the first time when they see apocalypse stuff.
Well, it's the Netflix audience. That's what it is. And which is most people who aren't movie nerds. I mean, that's why Adam Sandler's perfect for Netflix, But at the same time, I mean, it belongs on Netflix. You could tell it's a Netflix movie. And saying that, that's not a bad thing, because the Coen brothers, that belonged on Netflix for a different reason, because people just don't go to the movies unless there's a superhero in it. But this is kind of the straight-to-video kind of, but it's even, I don't know, it's somewhere between that. It's hard to, I don't know.
I guess for me, it's hard for me not to say I like this movie, because I just enjoyed watching it so much. And a lot of that is Twitter. A lot of that is watching blindfolded people run into trees. It's my favorite meme on Twitter now, is people just blindfolded running into trees.
Netflix told you to stop doing it, by the way.
I also the thing I hate most about this movie, of course, is that typical child in danger thing, because that's the most manipulative trope you can use in a movie, is putting children in danger, and this movie uses that repeatedly, putting children in danger to manipulate your feelings. There are aspects, though, I did like I thought Malkovich was deeply committed, and I liked the way his character is a tweener kind of bad guy, good guy, who in the end he was a pretty good guy.
He's a guy that most people would relate to, I think.
Yeah,
like,
he's having a reasonable reaction to this.
But back to the child endangerment thing, that's like, if you're going to do that, really truly make them in danger. If I don't believe that they're in danger, then it doesn't count. When I think they're going to get
what about
through
the rustling wind?
Exactly.
If this were the happening, you'd have been terrified.
I guess that's the thing. You can be rustling wind, but what's the mechanism through which that goes? Like, is there a demon behind it, as Lil Rel Howery was alluding to? Is it, are they aliens? Why are the towers not working for cell phones, but it's completely fine for the satellites out in space to work, and so people can use the GPS? I'm calling bullshit on this. I did during the film, too. What's that?
Part 2.
Yeah, screw part 2. I hope it probably will come, because it's like one of the most viewed Netflix films of all time already. But
they're going to tell you where they came from and make it even worse.
You know what? I've seen pictures of the concept art. Who cares? I don't care what your explanation is now.
For me, the biggest problem with it is, more than anything else, is the audience. The audience annoys me. I have friends that like this movie far too much. I don't even want to. It got into the comparison of Hereditary. And this person liked it better than Hereditary, and her husband said, "Well, what do you like better, this or Cocoon?" Or what do you like better, Cocoon or Hereditary? And she said Cocoon, which immediately goes, "See, now you don't have to listen to her opinion."
For the record, I like Hereditary better than all of those films you mentioned. Okay. It's important to note that at this point.
Josh doesn't like Hereditary that much. But yeah, it's a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna get that a little bit here.
I think if you watch this with Twitter open and hashtag Bird Box, you're gonna have a great time watching this movie, because I know I did.
I don't get on Twitter.
Try not to anymore. You know, it brings up an interesting thought for me immediately of we're kind of watching it with Twitter open, watching it with distractions, which is the type of crowd that you're talking about. And I think I'm getting a little snobby with my thoughts here, because I'm like, film is an experience, I'm standing on this ridiculous podium that I don't belong on, but I'm also thinking that's what makes it special to me. When I see something that looks cinematic, when I hear a story that isn't typical, characters that don't act the same as every other character. Okay, I do want to see something special, or it's a waste of time. If this is what Netflix is wanting to do 99% of the time, then why do I need a Netflix subscription?
I think if you watch this with a group of people and you're riffing it, and you've got people who are in the room who are actually scared by it, I mean, that would be just endless entertainment to me.
But it comes back to Josh's point. If you, for a somewhat original idea, there's nothing original about this.
No.
And that's kind of the biggest.
The happening meets the quiet place.
For people who, and even any apocalyptic movie, like Josh said, it has all those tropes in it and cliches that it's for the people who haven't seen all these movies like we have. So enjoy it, I guess.
Just do me a favor, if you're gonna. I urge you not to do these Bird Box challenges, but if you do put on a blindfold and run into a tree, please send it to me. I want to see that.
Hopefully no one that listens to our show is involved in this silliness anyways.
Maybe just their spouses.
Did your wife like this movie?
She was neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry. I just realized that could have gone in either way this time. Go on. I'm sorry.
She actually had to watch it twice because she watched it before I did, and because we were doing it for the show. So I think she liked it more than I did, but I don't think she was like in love with it or anything.
And I definitely know mine spent a good portion of it asleep and saying like, what do you expect? So she's constantly lowering my expectations in life. It's a good thing.
All right, now I can take the blindfolds off. Roma?
Oh, yes, Roma. This is, of course, the brilliant director
Alfonso
Cuarón, thank you, who directed this based off a story from his childhood. It's about a maid who works in a household in Mexico in the early 1970s, and it's really it's a slice of life story. There's not really, she's pregnant, and the boyfriend who knocked her up is going to disappear, and she's kind of searching for him, but also there's just a whole lot of other things going on. So it's really just about the time and the feeling and the atmosphere and the family, and those are really great aspects, and including the cinematography is extraordinary. It's black and white, and it's a beautiful looking movie. And on many respects, by the end of the movie, I was really I was invested in it. I had a hard time throughout the movie staying invested in it, though, because there's some, I know this is the dumbest objection I've ever had to a movie, but there's just so much dog shit, actual physical dog shit in this movie, and I don't understand the necessity of that much dog shit. Literally, there's a scene in this movie where we watch the mother parking a car, and we're focused entirely on this large pile of dog shit, and the car just pulling up to it, and I guess the suspense of the moment is she going to run over the dog shit, which she does. Okay. Why am I watching this? Why is this in this movie? I don't understand. And what is it that everyone loves about that aspect of it? I don't understand. Like, doesn't that bother anybody else other than me?
It's bothersome, but in the same way that people watch zit popping videos, like you don't want to admit it, but people that like it's me.
The first scene in the movie is dog shit. She's using a hose to hose down the driveway to get these giant piles of dog shit off the driveway before the husband gets home, so he can park his car.
How many dogs are in the film?
Just one.
Just the one
dog.
But in the neighborhood, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's
maybe
a slice of life movie. Yeah, for me, with those slice of life movies, if I can't relate to it, I have a hard time caring. And that it definitely, like you said, as it gets more into the movie and stuff starts to kind of fall into place, you get more invested in it. But it is hard to stay invested in something you're just. I mean, one, I want to be on my phone doing something else, and it's hard to do that when you're having to read, which is not a bad thing. It's just you really have to pay attention when. Because it's so easy to get on your phone.
Right.
Like you said, you watch Bird Box on Twitter. You can't really do that with this movie. I guess you kind of can, I suppose, because there's so much going on, but none of it's really important. Like literally driving over dog shit. Some guy shows the maid how he does karate.
Yeah, that was weird. Naked.
No reason at all.
Totally nude doing that. It's weird. The point I did become invested, they're at this giant party, and there's this giant forest fire off in the distance, and everybody leaves the party to go fight the fire, and it becomes this very surreal, sort of like an Italian neo-realist moment where there's this guy who's in full costume, kind of wandering around, kind of drunk, and that's kind of fascinating. And the everybody just kind of walking up and throwing a drink at the fire, trying to put it out. So it's got this weird sort of surrealism, and it has a unique sense of humor to it. The boyfriend is learning karate, and he goes to his karate teacher is this guy who's on TV who looks like a professional Mexican wrestler. I think he's kind of a unique character, and I like the ending. The ending is very sweet, and it wraps things up neatly and rather poetically. So there's a lot about this movie I like. I just don't love it. I just don't connect with it on an emotional level, mostly because of dog shit. I don't understand why that was there. But I guess I'm very sensitive to that. So I also don't have a dog, so I've never had to clean up dog shit.
So you've then never had to do Naked Ninja.
Oh, we've all done that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Because I'm sitting here like, wait, you've never done Naked Ninja? Like, you've just accomplished your goal, and so you start striking poses.
I can actually see you, whereas the audience doesn't have to have this visual in their head.
All right, close your eyes. Put your blindfold back on. Shit's about to get real in here. All right, I will not do Naked Ninja on this show, but...
I can't promise I won't do it in the bathroom mirror.
I can't promise that I didn't already do it once today.
Yeah, it's not for the Bird Box audience.
I would be fascinated to see the streaming numbers on Roma, to see how they compare with Bird Box.
That's the weird thing about Netflix is that if they want to boast about something, they'll tell you the numbers, like Bird Box, for example. But we don't get to see their numbers like Nielsen ratings and whatnot. So it's hard to tell what is popular on that. And obviously, they keep the information, but I kind of would like to see that for myself.
When Ridiculous 6 came out, they released the numbers on that being really like the biggest movie at the time that they had on there. So I don't know.
I think the key is that right now they don't have a real, genuine competitor in their market, so they don't have to release any numbers. Yeah. If they had some competition in what they do, then they might. But in terms of original, I mean, because Amazon they're not yet competing with Netflix. They're putting their stuff out in theaters still, and so that makes a big difference.
And their shit's way better.
Very true.
Braveheart 2.
Yeah. I wondered how you would introduce it.
Speaking of Netflix movies.
Outlaw King, great director, Mackenzie, David Mackenzie.
Yep.
Director of Hell or High Water. Directing the kind of movie that I always just hate. I just really hate this kind of movie. I'm not interested in what happened in 1304. It doesn't connect with me, so I really tried hard on this movie, and I did enjoy it, I guess. Other than Chris Pine's accent, which made me laugh repeatedly. Anytime somebody lays in that Scottish brogue, it really just does. It's hard to do, and it can be comical at times. The story goes, this is the story essentially of the character that Angus McFadden played in Braveheart.
Robert the Bruce.
Robert the Bruce. He ascends to the Scottish throne. Then immediately after William Wallace is killed, and leads the rebellion to get England out of Scotland. And there's a lot of interesting stuff. And like I said, I liked the movie, but I'm not really honestly sure what I enjoyed about it. I guess I liked the violence of it a little bit. I really did kind of like the violent fights and the bodies piled on top of bodies, and that pit of spikes was really cool. And my memory of Braveheart has so long passed that I don't remember just how violent Braveheart was. So maybe I don't know how to compare the two, I guess. But I enjoyed the violence of this movie. The fights were really badass. And beyond that, Chris Pine's good. I like Chris Pine a lot, so he makes it work. I like it. I'm going to forget it tomorrow, though, and that's really a shame because I think Mackenzie's a great director, and I want him to do more stuff. But this did not connect with me certainly not nearly as well as Hell or High Water did.
And speaking of the Braveheart vibe, though, this film seems to do as much as it can to distance itself from Braveheart whilst still feeling very much like a part two of that story. You're not going to hear the Braveheart overtones, except for one particular scene that I thought I heard a little James Horner score, but I'm like, nah, it's probably just Scottish music, man. What I really love about this one is the cinematography and the commitment on all sides. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, who's usually very annoying to me, is strong as a complete madman. But this story seems all too familiar, and I kept finding myself comparing what's real and what's not and looking up information on Wikipedia and then realizing, well, no one really knows anyways, so who's right, who's wrong?
There's actually like a 4-year gap where Robert the Bruce was in France, or they actually don't really know where he was.
But about Pine's accent, I was thinking about that, and I don't think he was capable of using his normal voice with that accent, so he plays it down a key, and in that way you sense less errors. So it didn't affect me as much as, say, Kevin Costner trying to do an English accent in Robin Hood, where it's just blatant. And everyone else seemed okay, especially we see a Braveheart alum, James Cosmo, who's Hamish's father in Braveheart. He makes an appearance as Robert the Bruce Sr. in this one, so that's kind of neat. But what it lacks is the epic grandeur feel, the sweeping nature of what Braveheart offers to us with the score and that particular countryside cinematography. It seemed much more epic in scale. This one, though, is a bit more brutal to me, and I liked the battle scenes a whole lot. I would say the last 20 minutes of this one, if the rest of the film had been that strong, I would have really, really enjoyed it. And the romance between Robert the Bruce and his bride from England, Elizabeth, I thought she did a wonderful job, too. It's an actress, I think, named Florence Pugh that I'd not seen before. But I thought their relationship was realistic and strong, and I bought them even a little bit more than I bought the Murren and William Wallace and the Murren and Isabel stories from Braveheart, because those are so piecemeal. These two seem to have more genuine learning each other moments.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it on my phone, so I suppose if they were trying to distance themselves from Braveheart, I didn't notice that at all because I just saw Braveheart light when I'm watching. But I enjoyed it; it was fun. Braveheart was pretty brutal, though. I mean, it was a brutal movie as well. What they don't do in Braveheart is when William Wallace is strung up at the end, they don't show that. They kind of show it here, or not kind of. They definitely show it.
Yeah, the pieces of William Wallace hanging on the city, his head on a spike outside the city. Yeah,
yeah.
The guy who gets hung and then they stab him in the gut and cut right down.
Yeah, there's that, and that would be perhaps obvious. I'm thinking more along the lines of how it was choreographed in the film. The first one, it was the first time that I saw a battle that seemed realistic, okay? Like, they were just swinging at each other with reckless abandon each time, and I think that's hard to capture if you're choreographing something. So that was great. And in this particular one, the blows that they landed, especially like the ends of the swords that they're cracking into their skulls and whatnot, it was a bit more sudden for me. And thus, I appreciated its brutality here a little bit more. Again, this is really, if you want to put them together, it's just one big story. And,
right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the thing that I really hated about this movie was the king's son. That character is in every one of these kind of movies. The sniveling, daddy issues kid he's always got a stupid haircut and a whiny face every time. And this kid has got the stupidest haircut and the whiniest face. I can beat them, Daddy. Send me back, Daddy. I can beat him this time. Ugh, shut up. And then he doesn't get killed, and I was like, no. Well, I mean, it's historic he didn't get killed, but still, he was barely even in that battle according to history. And this one has them surrounding him and then letting him leave. Like, that's believable.
But I mean, the reason I would say it belongs on Netflix because in a lot of ways it is Braveheart-like. Despite the director, he's a great director, but it's more. I think it's watchable, and I think Braveheart fans will like this movie. And I don't know. I think Netflix is a good spot for it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think this would play as well in a theater.
Not today's theater, no, but
Right.
maybe 1995's theater. I mean, where Rob Roy and Braveheart were two Scottish history films in the same year.
You guys watch anything else on Netflix that you want to talk about? Dumpling?
I didn't watch that. I watched John Mulaney's recent special.
I did too. Kid Gorgeous, that's
Yeah,
hilarious,
it's hilarious.
right? I love that show. I've seen that like 3 times now.
Yeah.
It's still funny. What's there? Oh, I watched The Kindergarten Teacher.
Oh, I saw that.
That is a fascinating movie because I never really, I did not. That was not anything I expected it to be.
Right.
Maggie Gyllenhaal plays a kindergarten teacher who becomes obsessed with one of her kids, this 5-year-old kid who does poetry, and instead of playing this like a 90s movie would play it, where she begins stealing his poetry and performing it as her own, and then she goes through an arc where she learns a valuable lesson and reveals at the end that it's him, and everybody goes home happy. No, she's like a fucking Salieri in this movie. Like, she's just watching this kid and is like, she admires him on such a deep level to the point where she cries when he does his poems, and she's also like deeply, deeply jealous and protective of him in the way that Salieri kind of was in Amadeus. And so I was fascinated by that aspect of it. I was also enjoying how every other character seemed to react to her appropriately. Like, what you're doing is not right. Like, she's able to do a lot of this stuff in secret, but like, you'll see a sign of her assistant teacher going, "You're taking him out of class again?" Like, she's looking at her a little sideways. She's made the nanny very uncomfortable. The father eventually reacts with perfect propriety, like, "Who the hell are you and why are you taking my son?" Kind of appropriate. So I like that, because most movies would let her off the hook every time. So I enjoyed a lot of this movie, and Maggie Gyllenhaal is deeply committed to it. And it's unexpected, and even as predictable as it kind of is, I found other aspects of it unpredictable enough to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, she's really good in it. I found, while they reacted appropriately, I felt like they acted a little late, and not in a realistic way. To me, it seemed like they would have reacted. I bought everything into her completely, but it seemed like the other teacher and the nanny would have been a little more. This is getting weird sooner, but yeah, it's an interesting movie. Again, not really for the Bird Box crowd, but
Do you hate Bird Box crowd more than you hate Star Wars crowd?
no. The Bird Box crowd
To be
is harmless.
fair, that's a fair statement. With the last year plus, yeah, it's all over for us.
Bird Box crowd's gonna forget about this movie in 3 months, while the Star Wars crowd clearly hasn't done that yet. I saw the Bill Murray story. Everybody go see that. There's a great story behind it. Bill Murray's in it, but he's not. I don't think they get his permission per se. But it's basically, it goes through all those urban legends of Bill Murray walking behind someone in the bathroom, covering their eyes, saying, "No one will ever believe you." Because you've all heard those stories.
Yeah.
And they just kind of, they go to the people who this happened to. Not everybody, but it's happened to so many people. They grab 5 or 6 and they just kind of retell the story, show the videos, and it's just fascinating. But in the end, there's this deep message, which they ended up taking all his movies and showing the same message in every movie he's done. They don't pull Stripes out, oddly enough, but they pull like just about everything else out, and there's this underlying current of or theme of it doesn't matter. This does not matter. Don't worry about it. Get over it. That's kind of the point of every Bill Murray performance. Is this doesn't matter, and it's a pretty neat way to live life, I think. You never get too down, you never get too high, because it just doesn't matter.
No, he's got his balance right between hope and despair.
But it's a fascinating documentary. I think people will enjoy it. Catch-up time. Josh saw First Reformed.
Speaking of hope and despair. Ooh. Okay, First Reformed is awesome. This is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. Going back, I think I would put it at 2 or 3.
Really?
Interfering
Wow.
with Black Klansmen in 8th grade. One of them is getting bumped down. Ethan Hawke is always had potential to move me like that, but I've never... let's take the Before series. That's a character that you kind of... You are him, per se, over a period of time, especially watching it as an adult and whatnot, being able to, like an older adult, being able to see some of the patterns for myself as well. But in this one, he does something so wonderful in that he starts the movie giving wonderful advice to people that need it. Everything he says is on point. I'm like, boy, this is a really wise character. And he, along with us, watches as he goes through this downward spiral until the end of the film. And at one point, I kind of predicted what I thought would happen. It ends up being what he was trying to do at the end. And I felt very rewarded by that. It's not a brag. It's more of a... I identify what Paul Schrader likes in a lot of his characters. And he's the writer-director of this one, responsible for some really good crap, like Taxi Driver, Bringing Out the Dead are the two that come to mind the most. And then you say he's done one of the worst films of all time in The Canyons. But this is so good. You've got the New England old church, old religion imagery and all of that type of thing that you're putting your mind into. You've got the big business church that Cedric the Entertainer. I didn't recognize his name in the opening credits. I see him and I'm like, oh, that's the Cedric they're talking about. Okay. That whole big business thing really rubs me the wrong way, and I'm sitting here watching him talk the way that he is to Ethan Hawke's character, and it's just grinding me. This film does a good job of setting up everything. You alluded to in an earlier review that it earned something, or that they really set scenes up well. This is one of the best I've seen in a long time like that, because everything that happens at the end, it's not like it's an out of left field choice. You start to see through each scene, and there's callbacks throughout. My wife watched it with me, and let me tell you, she hated it a lot. She hated it because of the ending. And I think we had her until that moment, and I was thinking, oh, this is wonderful. It's a great way to end it, because you're left thinking, where could it go? Either way is a bad thing. Like, whichever avenue you go down with this character, it's bad. Okay, so it doesn't really matter how the film wants to end. It might as well end up in the most unlikely scenario, you know. But I really dig this film's craziness without being over the top. I really think Ethan Hawke gave one of the best performances of the year, and I'm really mad at myself for not watching it sooner.
Yeah, I think I had it at 3 if I remember right in my top 10. Yeah, I don't know. I love how it just kind of ends with this little glimmer of hope. Basically in a lot of ways it's like Mother, only it's a global warming story, really, and that's, you know, him not following through is that glimmer of hope that that's what she is.
You saw it as a glimmer of hope, then?
Oh, it was.
Okay, so you're certain because you've heard podcasts and have done better research than me and whatnot, or that's your interpretation? Because you're saying it was as if it's a certainty. I just wanted to make sure.
I'm never wrong.
Well, I saw it as something that maybe didn't even happen, because as we go through the film, we're on that downward spiral with him, where for a moment I'm like, yeah, you know what? He should blow this place. And I'm like, hold on a second. because I recognize how bad all of these people are, and I understand that his message is resonant.
You know why he wants to do that, though? Is because he wants to draw attention to the cause.
Of course. So what I was thinking about is towards the end, whatever sickness it is that he has, it to me is that what we actually saw on screen, Hope, the man has already, like, he's got barbed wire in places that he shouldn't have barbed wire. He's gone already. I don't see that that's a glimmer of hope. I think it's a final moment.
Terminal cancer.
That's the thing. I have heard. I heard in the film *Malignant*, it would check for a malignancy, and it's clear that he's sick, and it's clear that he's peeing out blood. The man is clearly dying, it seems, but of what we don't know. Is it possible that he's hallucinating all of this too? I mean, if you've been around anyone in the late stages of life, they start to see things that aren't there and do things that they shouldn't do. So what is really going on with this movie? To me, it's more of a wide open interpretation of the end. And I'll go with the lack of hope. Or perhaps, if there is, very slim hope.
I'm kind of with Josh, too. I kind of felt the same way, that there was a kind of a falseness to the what we see. I didn't buy into the two of them doing what they did. I thought she didn't come back. Or if she did, he was still going to go through with what he did.
Well, the whole global warming that's paralleling the story is the world fucked or is it not? And with her popping up at the end means it's probably fucked, but it might not be. That's kind of what this movie is saying.
Sure. I think you could definitely discern that, but other than that, what you're explaining, there's nothing else in the film itself that shows me that she's literally like Mother Earth or something, or
she's
symbolically.
They have the global warming theme going pretty strong throughout the whole movie. They don't have the things happening that don't happen going at all in this movie.
But when she lays on top of him and they do that particular experiment where I'm trying to think to myself, she said that previously she'd done that high. I didn't see them take anything. Maybe I missed something. Maybe he was drunk at the time, whatever. Maybe he's having the very hallucinations that I was speaking about. That seemed like it wasn't actually happening too. So the film has thrown me off just enough to make me think there's a different interpretation. Point is, I love the shit out of it, and I'm so glad I saw it.
Anything else you want to catch up on?
Not really.
I saw Ralph Breaks the Internet a little bit over a week ago. Really enjoyed it. My son really enjoyed it as well. I think it's stronger than the first one. I see exactly what you meant about that message that is so important for kids to see. And it's a real mature message for an animated film. There's a lot of tiny little things too that I wasn't seeing at first, and then I thought about it. I'm like, oh, that was an Easter egg. There's enough for the geek and enough for the adult and enough for the kid in this movie. I still like Spider-Man better than this one, but it is definitely one of the better animated films in recent years.
I was just going to ask you that because I saw Spider-Man yesterday, I think, and I think I like it better than Wreck-It Ralph too, as much as I like Wreck-It Ralph. I was kind of shocked because I was prepared to go in there and find something wrong with this movie because that's how I was going in. That's what I do. And it was really, really good. And I think the message in that one's even a little better. I don't know. I'm just
parallel messages. Both of them are fantastic for kids. We almost expect to see more of a moral dilemma when it comes to a superhero film than a larger mature message out of a Disney film is all I mean.
Well, my son had a wrestling meet today, and he hasn't won a match yet, and every time he goes down there before his match, he just will not stop talking about how he's going to lose. I'm like, that's why you're going to lose, because you won't stop it. So then I started to try to bring Spider-Man into it, and it just pissed him off even more. I was like, you take that leap of faith. Go for it. And he was like, fuck you, Dad. Spider-Man's not real. He didn't say the swear words, but I'm sure he was thinking them.
Wise beyond his years.
Well, that's why he lost, because I'm like, you're just wrestling another kid.
6 years old, 7 years old?
7.
He's 7. Okay. He gets it. that you shouldn't listen to superhero movies, and I'm 39 going on 40, and I'm still drawn in like a
But the
moth
one
to
thing
a
you can
flame.
take from it, and he doesn't take it.
Yeah. Cynical kids.
Always with the texting, the kids and the texting.
Yeah. They're lulls and lymphos.
Number 18 in 1988. Squeezed and pulled and hurt my neck in 1988.
Squeezed and pulled and hurt your neck in 1988.
All right. 1988, the last round of the movies from 88.
Right, because there are no new movies yet for 89 for
No.
this year. They don't start till next week.
That's right. Next week starts with something that I'm interested in revisiting just for the sake of fun, not because I think Deep Star 6 is good, but
This
that's
is really,
89.
But this is really just an excuse for Bob to not have a clip from 89 yet.
Basically.
I personally also hold him individually responsible for this.
I'm the reason there's no classic.
But about those 88 films, they're the lost films, the ones that barely made any money at the time.
And are
you don't
literally
remember.
not available
Yeah.
anywhere.
So I
aside
did a
from
really
one of
bad
them.
job of not mentioning that in my post this week about them, but they intrigued me in certain levels for each one. I'll start at the last one, Never Say Die. It seems like it's actually like an Australian or New Zealand type film. The star is Tamara Morrison. He just played Arthur Curry's dad in Aquaman. He's been Jango Fett in all of the clones before in Star Wars. He's been in Green Lantern. But he's more known in his homeland for being a leading man. And I've really liked him. I've met him. He's the only celebrity that I've ever really met. And I have his autograph and picture taken with him. And really cool dude. So I was interested in seeing this one, but good luck. It's not really available. It's called Never Say Die. Its plot is that a couple ends up running for their lives from South African hitmen and the police. I can't tell if Lisa Eilbacher and George Wendt are the couple in this movie and Tamara Morrison's the antagonist, or vice versa. I doubt that George Wendt is playing the South African hitman.
When I saw George Wendt's name, I'm like, that is bizarre casting.
Yeah. Like,
we're well into Cheers now.
no offense, Norm has never run for his life.
If the running involves him sitting behind a desk all the movie, then yes, I get it.
And definitely not in South Africa. The poor man would be dead within a mile. I mean, I know me. Okay, so the number 6 is Sticky Fingers. Helen Slater, Melanie Mayron, she makes an appearance, I think, a couple times in these next few weeks. Two girls try hard to find a job as musicians. Okay, I'm done with that one. Let's see. This number 5 is Born to Race. A race car driver falls in love with a beautiful Italian automobile engineer. Don't know anything about it. Don't even know the names of the actors involved. Deep cut. Speaking of Deep Space is another one. This has got one of those super cheesy covers to it. And I recognize the name Charles Napier for some reason. I think he was in the old Batman series as Alfred.
Perhaps.
I don't know if he died before this or his name was Napier or somebody involved with it was Napier. Anyways,
the Batman 89, Jack Napier.
yes, that's where they took that from, actually, yeah. Okay, so an American satellite with a new biological weapon gets out of control and crashes into U.S. territory. A slimy monster emerges, manages to escape, killing everyone who crosses its path.
Wish I had seen that one.
I'll just go with the next one. Stranded is the one that I was most interested in watching because the poster is strong. It's got a nice font with a good design. It looks very spacey, like, it was just waiting to be discovered by us this week. But it's not available to stream, and we had to go to YouTube to find a very grainy copy of it. Okay, it's like right there in the first result. So YouTube, you want to get pissed about that? Go take it down. But I don't think anyone's going to worry too much about having Stranded online or not online. I got through about 20 to 25 minutes of it before I clearly fell asleep 3-something in the morning. It stars Ione Skye and Maureen O'Sullivan to a point, but Sean, you're telling me that Ione Skye isn't really in the movie much.
She's not. Like, Joe Morton is far more in the movie than she is.
That's Miles Dyson for all you Terminator fans out there.
Famed character actor Joe Morton, who's known for far more things than that, but nevertheless.
Yes, Cyborg's dead.
Nevertheless, this is a bizarre movie. These aliens come to Earth and they end up in this farmhouse with this girl and her grandmother. And the aliens are bizarre. Like they look like rejects from Deep Space Nine, like with but with like really bad makeup, like really bad
Worse
makeup
makeup?
jobs.
Thank you.
And like it really is like a bad TV setup, but except they brought with them like a guy, like their protector is a guy in a GIMP costume for
Yeah.
some reason.
I don't know what was going on
It's
there.
supposed to be more alien than that, but it looks like a GIMP costume. And then the one guy is able to communicate with Ione Sky by floating this like blue vagina in the air and like using that to interpret for himself. And the movie is like 78 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it, like they're leaving about the time that the movie should be peaking. Like the movie should be reaching some sort of crescendo, and the aliens are already getting in their ship to go.
So you clearly caught the podcast episode, which would be Naked Ninjas and Blue Vaginas.
This is so bizarre. This movie is just it's terrible. I mean, it's terrible, but at the same time, I don't know. I really kind of enjoyed it, making fun of it, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those attempting to be competent science fiction films based on what I saw, but they had no competence to begin with, so it never had a chance. But not like purposely bad for the sake of making something like Sharknado.
These are really terrible aliens. Like these are some of the worst aliens I've ever seen in a movie. There's an alien. Evil woman who is just one of the stupidest looking special effects I've ever seen in a movie. It's so bad. We should put the screen cap of it in the group, because honestly, I had to take a picture of it and send it to you guys while I was watching it because it was so stupid looking. It was like a dog with no skin or something. Like it was just so stupid, but plastic. For whatever reason. It was so bad.
See, the way you're describing it, though, like if you had not seen it, but you described all of these scenes, then it would have sounded awesome, but no. Last one's a movie called Doing Time on Planet Earth. It looks like something that's utterly forgettable and I don't want to talk about, but Girl in a Swing with Meg Tilly. I had put it out there that perhaps, was that last week's stuff that I said Uncle Jeff had probably seen?
Yeah, this was on last week's episode too, or at least
okay.
I had it in the notes.
And he has seen Girl on a Swing, as I can
right.
tell. So, yeah, he can tell us all about it. But it stars Meg Tilly. She's a London art broker that goes to Copenhagen. With a guy where he requires the services of a secretary fluent in Danish, English, and German. He falls deeply in love with the woman, despite the fact that he knows virtually nothing about her. And that's 1988. We've closed it down now.
Forever. We will never go back, except for maybe to talk about Bull Durham again. I didn't post anything for the top 5 or movie 5s, whatever, but we did talk about doing what you're looking forward to next year or this year, now 2019. Is there a movie that stands out that you're looking forward to this year? Or are you not prepared for this?
You guys go first.
If you're ready, go for it.
Okay. Aside from the typical superhero and genre stuff, like obviously I'm interested in Star Wars Episode 9, Avengers, Endgame, Captain Marvel. I want to see all that stuff. But in looking through the upcoming list, I discovered some things that were kind of interesting, including a movie called Ad Astra. Now, it's a science fiction film that stars Brad Pitt, and the principles and plot involved sound a lot like something out of an Arthur C. Clarke book, and I'm very interested in it. I forget who plays it's Tommy Lee Jones plays his father, who's on a mission many years before. They don't hear from them, and so he's on the mission to go find out what happened. That sounds a lot like 2010, actually. Very, very similar stuff. So and just taking a brief look at that, I can't wait to see a trailer. That looks really fascinating to me, and that comes out later this year. Joker, I know I said superhero films, but this one is set up to be more like a deep drama about a disturbed man as opposed to straight up being like a superhero film. So I'm excited about that. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the next Tarantino film about Charles Manson. Yeah, I think I'm pretty interested in seeing anything he does. And lastly, pretty interested in a discovery Gemini Man, starring Will Smith. Now, normally I wouldn't be interested in a Will Smith film, but this is directed by Ang Lee. And I'm kind of interested based on that alone because he has a tendency to make very unique things. His last film that you talked about with Billy Lynn, Halftime Walk or
love
whatnot.
that movie.
I was so interested. I still haven't seen it, but I'm interested in what he did differently that you presented to us. And this being a science fiction type of story, where does he take it with science fiction? This sounds cool.
I'm interested, of course. The one that's going to get the most attention is Tyler Perry's Medea's Family Funeral. Is probably going to be the #1 movie of the year and the most talked about. No, Us obviously would be the one to look forward to. The Peele's follow up to Jordan Peele's follow up to Get Out. I'm really excited about that one. Captain Marvel would be the other one because I don't really know about anything about the the big prestige movies yet. So.
Right.
In terms of just those, the big movies, I think those two would be huge, and I think Captain Marvel looks great.
I'm curious about Climax, Gaspar Noé, or however you pronounce his name, the A24 movie, and really any of the A24 movies that come out this year.
Yeah, if I see their name on anything, I'm rushing for that.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like Josh said, I'm excited about Glass, Toy Story 4, and 3 from Hell.
That was the first one that came up on a long list that I
Really?
read because they went in numerical then alphabetical order. So got to read about that first. The author was as confused as I was, wondering how they're going to do it, considering how the last one ended.
We didn't see him die.
Of course not. Just like we didn't see Trevante Rhodes in Bird Box actually get it. But he's apparently gone too, so spoiler.
He clearly died.
I read an article after I watched it that said that he survived and others survived and whatnot. I didn't buy it.
That's the Bird Box audience I'm talking about.
I was skeptical. Okay, good. I'm not one of them.
Next week, we got A Dog's Way Home, Replicas on the Upside. Our classic's going to be 1973's Clones. Is that the right year? 72, 73?
73, yeah. It's available
on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Prime, so you can watch it with us. Basically, Replicas looks, if you look at the trailer, it looks really, really bad. And so I thought, why not a really bad clone movie to go with a really bad clone movie? Potentially. I shouldn't prejudge it, but that trailer looked real bad. Ooh.
Should we bring the top 5 back and do top 5 clones? Could we do that even? I don't even know.
I mean, you could label it, you could call it the Attack of the Clones top 5.
Oh.
I don't know.
That's pretty good.
I mean, I'll have to Google search clones. 'Cause I couldn't.
Oh, I got a top 5 already.
Are they all Ripley?
No, but she is one.
I got a top 5. It's from one movie. And you'll never guess it. Actually, you probably will.
Multiplicity.
Yep. But that is our show. I do want to thank our Patreon supporters. Head over to ihatecritics.net/Patreon to be a supporter. Up here are key grip levels, Jason Bryant and Charlie Messing. Our character actors, Cousin Jeff, Christina Cato, and Josh Paul.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Our special effects level, Sarah Ward and Corey from Ivy Envy.
May the force be with you.
Our associate producer is Jason from New Mexico.
Everybody has to eat shaving cream once in a while.
And our movie stars are Uncle Jeff and Dave Sievers.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Again, if you're interested in being a Patreon supporter, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. We also have a PayPal link if you'd rather do that. We also have merch, ihatecritics.net. Click on the podcast merch. Best way to help support the podcast is one of those 3 things. And then subscribe to the show, rate and review the show, and share with your friends. help us grow. And if anybody has an 89 clip or something that says 30-year-old movie or something like that, let me know, and that'll be the new 30-year 89 clip. I'm sure there's something that says 1989.
I feel like I should watch Ghostbusters 2 really quick just to see if they say it in there, because there's news flashes and whatnot. And yeah,
either that or I'll just grab Lethal Weapon where they say 80s man and just use something.
There you go.
Like that. Anything else before we move on? All right, we'll see you next week.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best three friends that anybody could have. I mean the three best friends that anybody could have. That's right, the three best friends.
Do you guys have time for Flick Chart, or did I waste too much time at the beginning?
I'm good.
I just got to find it now.
I was trying to figure out, too, I put another genre film, the Terminator film that's coming up. I am going to see it, of course. I'll be the first one there. But I was trying to figure out, how are they going to title that? It can't be Terminator 3. Okay. It can't be, like, Terminator 2. What are they going to call it? The Terminator again? Because that was already what it was called.
Probably.
Terminators. Maybe there's more than one. I don't know. And then I thought, like, you can't call it a name on its own, too, because people will think, oh, this comes after Genesis. Like, it's a sequel to Genesis when it's not. And I'm thinking way too much about it.
How about Spectacular Waste of Money? Can we call it that?
We know it's that. But it's not our money.
I bet they just call it the Terminator, like Halloween did, and I think even Texas Chainsaw, when they did the sequel to that, they just called it Texas Chainsaw.
Christian Bale, Best Actor for Vice, and Olivia Colman, Best Actress for The Favorite.
Golden Globes tonight?
Yep.
Really? Spider-Man, Best Animated Film.
Agreed.
No, it actually won.
Yeah, it won.
Oh, yeah. I made the connection.
That said, after the nerds that I saw accept the award, I was starting to change my opinion of the movie.
You're talking about Lord and Miller?
Oh, my God.
What were they wearing? Spider-Man masks?
They might as well have been. It was like Andy from IPCS. So they're accepting the award.
Well, yeah, okay, then it was Lord and Miller. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw on Twitter he just said he had Spider-Man cufflinks.
Maybe. I was just kind of disappointed.
He's disappointed that the dudes that made the Lego movie were working on a Star Wars movie and got fired and produced a Spider-Man film or nerdy things.
I thought it was a little beyond. It seemed like they were more hip. I didn't know they were. I didn't know nothing about. Maybe you said it. I didn't know their names. But it's in one ear, out the other.
Fair enough.
When it comes to that stuff. Gross Point Blank or Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Gross Point Blank.
Gross Point Blank.
Robin Hood Men in Tights. Alice in Wonderland 1951 or The Day After Tomorrow.
Alice in Wonderland.
Agreed.
I hate Day After Tomorrow.
Meet the Fockers, Casablanca.
Casablanca.
Yep. If I may.
Go ahead.
You guys had received my version of the wedding invitation for a recent wedding. What you didn't see was the first draft that we got from trying to hire a sketch artist that was involved in movie posters specifically. And all he did was we gave him images, including the Casablanca poster, for inspiration. And it happened one night with Clark Gable. And that ended up being kind of what it was designed around, was somebody else that did it right. This guy took our images from an existing picture instead of original art and photoshopped us into Bogey and Ingrid Bergman in the front, and just had the same guys around the back of us, and it still said Casablanca on it. I'm like, but that's not our names. It's not the Casablanca wedding, you idiot. So he said, no, that is not quite what we asked for, and he sent us back something else that was actually 50 times worse. And so he just said, please don't do anything else for us. Keep your initial deposit and go away. So that just goes to show you, if you're good at Photoshop, don't advertise that you can do original art. Okay, there are actual artists out there that can do things.
Kingdom of Heaven, Lost in Translation.
Lost in Translation.
Agreed.
Yep. The X-Files, 98. Vertigo, 58.
Vertigo.
The Bird Box crowd would say X-Files.
I do like those X-Files movies. But
it's fine. Nothing wrong with that, but they would still pick
clearly not
Vertigo. Vertigo. Drive or Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Gosh, that's tough. I really like Drive a lot. And Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is kind of a nostalgia piece. So I think Drive is a better movie. I'm going to Drive.
I haven't seen Drive, but I bet it wouldn't beat Temple of Doom.
Probably not. I'll go Drive. Chinatown or Blade Trinity?
Chinatown. Fuck Blade Trinity.
Who can we get for Dracula? The guy from Prison Break.
The Hurt Locker or Batman Returns?
The Hurt Locker.
Hurt Locker.
Yeah. The Prestige or The Terminal?
The Prestige. I was actually going to mention that when we were talking about clones, but it's such a spoiler.
No. I was like, The Terminal?
Whoa. Oh, fuck The Terminal so much.
I'll have to go with The Prestige so that I don't have to defend myself. It's a better movie.
The Curious Case of Benjamin Button or Ice Age 2: The Meltdown. But
Benjamin
you have
Button.
to say which one you'd rather watch.
I'd rather watch Benjamin Button than any fucking Ice Age movie. Fuck that stupid squirrel.
Luckily, I remembered that I have in reserve my Fishing with Gandhi. That's what I will choose.
I'll go Benjamin Button. SWAT or Planet Terror?
SWAT. I hate Planet Terror.
I'll go with Planet Terror.
I'll go with Planet Terror. I like Planet Terror.
SWAT's rough.
Eastern Promises or The Muppet Movie?
Oh, that's
Compare those two.
Yeah.
Which one would you rather watch?
I mean, they're both really great. Eastern Promises.
I'm going to go Muppet Movie for rewatchability purposes. Eastern Promises is really, really good, but it's a little harsh, you know?
I like naked shower fights.
Naked Ninja.
Part of me really wants to use the Bird Box title as a, search engine optimization. But I do want to do Naked Ninja or maybe Blue Box instead of Blue Vagina.
Oh.
Notting Hill or Airplane?
Oh.
Airplane.
Yeah, it's Airplane.
Yeah. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them or Anaconda?
Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, it is. I'm not happy about it, though.
Beetlejuice or Schindler's List? I'm just imagining a movie where they both exist.
Hey, buddy.
Is Beetlejuice on the side of the Nazis?
I think he plays both sides. He's got to make a living.
Schindler's List. I'll feel guilty if I don't.
There's a line that I can use here, and it's too insensitive, so I can't. But boy, it would really work for me if somebody told me that in a comedy sense.
Okay.
Wait, what did you vote for?
Oh, Schindler's List, clearly. I was still daydreaming about crossover events.
I'm just imagining the end where they're already dead, and that,
Oh, handbook for the recently deceased.
Right.
Dachau edition.
Oh, God. That's horrible.
I know.
Yes, of course.
It's Flickhart's fault, not mine. All About Eve or Fight Club?
All About Eve.
And that is good. I will go with Fight Club, though.
I will, too. Beowulf 07. What about Bob?
What about Bob?
What about Bob?
Beowulf.
Because Bob really hates that movie.
I haven't even seen Beowulf. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade or Kill Bill Volume 2?
Kill Bill.
Oh, no.
Indiana Jones is getting killed today.
I'll go with Last Crusade based on my rankings, and I actually like Kill Bill 1 more than 2. So,
yeah, I'm one of the rare that likes 2 better, but most people like 1 better. What Lies Beneath or The Game?
Oh man, is it Fincher night?
My least favorite Fincher movie.
Yeah. I find that What Lies Beneath is so funny that I'm going to go with that one.
I'll go with The Game. I still love how the movie's filmed. It's just such a good looking movie, even being 1998. And
I know, but I remember walking into the theater and literally saying, "If this is a game the whole time, this is." Sure enough, I'll go with What Lies Beneath just because of that. But that's not fair. Well, Kill Bill 2 is really high on our list.
It should be.
All right, this is going to be a tough one. Flubber or Old Boy?
We're talking about the right Old Boy, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay, yes, Old Boy.
I feel much the same way about Flubber that you do about What About Bob, because of Flubber's taking of my theater when my Alien movie came out. The big theater in Milan, like the place that you wanted to be when a new release was like in your wheelhouse. I was relegated to the back of the theater for Alien Resurrection, and Flubber got the big one because it was Disney. But I'll go with the other film that you mentioned that I forgot about.
Clearly, Old Boy.
Old Boy, yeah. Oh, my God. Old Boy. Of course.